Hello and a good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are around the world. Welcome to today's Postgrad Webinar service. Today, we're joined by Heriot-Watt University. Today, we're hearing about their MSc in Applied Data Science. Now, we're joined by Tim Johnson today, who's the Programme Director of the Applied Data Science MSc at the university. Now, we're going to be hearing about what makes the programme so great, what makes it a fascinating proposition for all of you interested within that science field, and in particular, why Edinburgh. So it should be an engaging session. There's quite a few of you watching live, and there'll be a few watching on demand also. So if you have any questions and you are watching live today, please use that chat facility. Please feel free to say hi, where you're from, what you're interested in, and if you use the Q&A box at the bottom, we'll try and get around to your questions during our dedicated Q&A with Tim later on in the session. A reminder, today's date is the 23rd of April, so if you do hear anything date sensitive that you're not sure about, please factor that in. And if you have any questions on demand, webinars at postgradsolutions.com is the best place to communicate. All students that are viewing this today will be given the option of a certificate to show their attendance. That will be required to be sent in an email to us with your details so that we can send that over to you. And again, if you have any questions, please just communicate with us and let us know. But for now, without keeping you waiting too much longer, Tim, over to you. I'll be back for the Q&A towards the end.
Okay, thanks a lot. Um, Welcome to you all, and thank you very much for joining us on your webinar. I hope you find it informative and useful, and I hope to see you in September. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So basically, the overview of the MSc is designed to provide students who don't have a background in maths, science, engineering, computer science, with the knowledge of machine learning and artificial intelligence necessary for a career in data science. Um, the motivation for this is that there is significant demand for people with data science skills, but there aren't enough science, maths, computer science, technology graduates to fulfill that demand. And this was actually recognised by the British government, and so they've been encouraging universities to start offering these courses that are designed to develop the existing skills of graduates in a data science role. So that's basically the overview. And Rebecca, if we can go on to the next slide. The agenda of my talk, it's designed to take about 20 minutes, maybe less, maybe more, depending on how much I go off script or how quickly I talk. And what we'll do is, first of all, talk about the basic demand for data science, why this program, go into a bit more detail about why the program was developed. We'll talk about the program structure and how the program was developed, and then I'll finish off a little bit about why Edinburgh, why actually come to Edinburgh rather than alternatives. Okay, next slide, please, Rebecca. So starting off with why applied data science. So as I say, in 2023, the UK Parliament said that it's unlikely that data scientists coming out of UK universities would exceed 10,000 per year, but there were potentially 180,000 data science specialist roles out there. And then there is also various other, apart from this core data science roles, most jobs now, or most employers now, certainly in the UK, are looking for employees or graduate employees to have some understanding of AI machine learning because it's having such a big impact on the business. And I was just thinking about this yesterday and last night, and I started designing the course about 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. And to be frank, the whole landscape of data science has changed radically in just that 2.5, 3 years. And so we're always looking to improve the program, but also just that demonstrates how important this domain is, how this field is. And the idea is um, people coming off, they've done a degree in whatever subject and they're looking to go out and work in that degree. And what we're trying to do is to give them the skills that make them data science literate and be able to do some of the jobs out there. Rebecca, if you go on to the next slide, it might be a bit more um, helpful. So at the moment, you can split the job market for in data, machine learning, AI into basically three categories. And so this nomenclature is fairly common, and you can look on things like LinkedIn or job adverts, and you have the difference between data analysts, data scientists, and then things like machine learning, AI engineers. Um, Data analysts don't require any specialist skills. The entry level salaries can range between 28 and 35. So that's top end undergraduate salary ranges in the UK. These are salaries outside London. If you're looking at London at about 10 or 15,000 pounds a year, and a data analyst will generally be experienced in Microsoft software, Excel, Access, things like that. Maybe some specialist software such as Tableau, Power BI. And so they will basically be doing data processing. At the other end of the spectrum, we have machine learning AI engineers. They're typically earning the premium salaries. Basic entry level salary outside London is going to be 50, 60,000 pounds a year, and you're going to need a PhD or advanced MSc specifically in AI or machine learning. So these are going to be qualifications coming out of a computer science. So you might have studied maths as an undergraduate and then worked, done a PhD or an MSc in an advanced MSc in computer science, software engineering, or you've just you studied computer science and then went on to do a PhD in machine learning AI afterwards. So people like Google and Amazon will be employing those types of graduates, and certainly at Google, your starting salary is in excess of £100,000. But we're not looking to fill those positions. What we're looking to do is, if you just go on to the next slide, Rebecca, is oh, go back to do um, train up data scientists or enable you to get a job role that's listed as data scientist. And those starting salaries are typically 35 to 50,000 pounds. And what the employers will be looking for is experience, knowledge of the computing language Python, SQL, and R, and familiarity with topics like supervised, unsupervised learning, and things like temporal models, so time series models. And so that's what we're trying to develop the skills specifically for that type of job role. And if you go onto LinkedIn and do a job search on data scientist, you'll see the sort of skills that they're looking for and an idea of the types of jobs that this MSc is aimed at developing your skills in. Um, as I say, the program is designed for people who have no real experience. Maybe they've done some maths, some statistics in their undergraduate degree program, but it hasn't been central. And what we're looking to do is to upskill you. So using the basis of what you studied as an undergraduate, and then give you the mathematical, the technical skills that enable you to become a data scientist. And For example, this year we have a student who graduated in sociology in Nigeria, and he's doing fine. He did some statistics as part of his degree, but you know, he's progressing very well. He's very happy with the course, and hopefully he'll graduate, you know, and then able to walk into a data science course. Uh, just a little back, sort of additional information. Um, this year, it was the first year that we've been running the program, and about a third of our students are coming from sort of maths, economics, engineering type undergraduate degrees. So even if you've got that sort of undergraduate degree, um, there is the capacity. Um, you won't be doing a lot of you don't have to do lots of introductory maths or basic maths that the sociologists will need. There are alternative options, and again, so as I say, we've got a lad who did his undergraduate degree in mathematics at the University of Edinburgh, and he's enjoying the course and everything. So we've got a wide range of students, but specifically we're aiming at people who haven't done a quantitative undergraduate degree but are looking to go into data science. And one reason why we think as a Scottish university we would be good at this is Scottish universities are four-year universities, four-year degrees, unlike English universities are three-year degrees, and the idea behind the Scottish degree structure is that it's designed to take students who leave school at the age of 17, whereas in England, degrees are designed to take students at the end of 18. That means that within the maths departments, and there are two, there's a maths department, an actuarial maths and statistics department at Heriot-Watt. Within those two departments, we have skills and experience of teaching 17-year-olds mathematics, which English universities don't have because they assume if you've got a mathematics qualification, you have studied it up to 18. But we're used to teaching a more basic level of maths, and that's part of, you know, we've been doing that for, well, couple of since over 100 years at Heriot-Watt, and we're used to it. Whereas English universities, they're not so used to teaching the introductory maths courses that we do every year. Okay, next slide. So we'll talk about the program structure. As I say, I started looking. I was asked to look at developing this sort of data science program for people without a technical background 2.5, 3 years ago. And I spent about a year looking at what employers were looking for, primarily figuring out what the skills and expertise employers were asking for. And that took a couple of months. And then I sort of looked at what other courses were doing, what the textbooks were saying, and then we built the program, designed the program with a focus on what employers were looking for, but basically from scratch. So the idea was we weren't going to be taking a mishmash of existing courses and presenting them as a data science program. We spent quite a lot of time looking at what skills employers were demanding, and then what what how best to deliver those skills, how best to prepare them. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So the program structure is we have 3 semesters, two taught semesters, semester one, which starts in September and ends with exams or assessment in December. Though I think most applied data science MSc students I think you might have one, possibly two exams in December. And then second semester starts in January, finishes April. There's a couple of week break in April, and then exams start at the end of April. They started here at the beginning of the week, and they run through for 2 or 3 weeks. And then there's another break, and then we have semester three, which is the dissertation. So it's your main project work, and that will start in June, beginning of June, and ends in the beginning of middle of August. Um, as I say, certainly most of semester one courses are coursework assessed um, by a mixture of methods, doing reports, doing projects, doing presentations, doing class tests, things like that. Um, in the second semester, there is more examination. So at the end of the second semester, there is a bit more examination, but I still think the majority of the work is assessed by coursework, not through final exam. I'll talk about the dissertation after I've gone through the details of semesters one and two. So in semester one, is the foundations, and you only have two mandatory courses, an introduction or foundation to programming, where you're introduced to Python, SQL, and R. And we see that as mandatory because even if you're coming off a maths degree or an engineering degree, well, not so much an engineering degree, but if you're coming off maths or economics, you might not have had much experience of programming. And then we also do an overview of business analytics, which is your first introduction to um, machine learning and artificial intelligence. And that is really, looking at how introducing you to the concept, what's the difference between supervised learning and unsupervised learning? What's the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence? All this sort of word soup that you're reading about in the press and everything, but it's putting it into the context, into a business context, and explaining what the basics of what business are looking for in data sciences. Um, you also do introductory, or there are options. Sorry, those are mandatory courses. Programming and business analytics, practical business analytics, they're mandatory. Everybody takes them. Now, if you're coming off a non-set STEM, that science, technology, engineering, mathematics degree, um, you are offered two other courses, one in sort of pure maths, which is essentially linear algebra and calculus, and the other is an introduction to probability and statistics. And the maths course is a compression of what we teach first year undergraduates. Well, both those maths and the probability courses are compressions of what we teach first year undergraduates. And the idea is it takes you from what you what we require you to have studied at school and just prepares you uh, to understand the mathematics underpinning artificial intelligence and machine learning. So there is a technical prerequisite, and that is that you have a post 16 qualification in mathematics. Um, and if you want to know, well, what does that mean? Basically, what we hope is that you have been introduced to the mathematical technique of integration at school. Um, we find that's true of most people. What we also like to see, or what is useful to see, is maybe some exposure to statistics in your undergraduate degree. So a lot of people, like the sociologist I mentioned earlier, he had done um, statistics as an undergraduate. But again, that's not necessary. And the admissions people have a good understanding of what you require. So they will let you know if they think you don't have the fundamental, the basic school maths that will help you. Now, if you're coming to the program offer science, technology, engineering, maths undergraduate degree, there are options for you to do rather than doing maths and statistics. And you don't have to do maths and statistics. If you've done, like if you've done a bioscience degree, you've often done a lot of statistics, but you might be weak on the calculus and linear algebra, so you just do maths. And then there's alternatives, and there are database and information systems, for your year, there'll be one on project management, but there's a number of options that you can take. If you're coming off a maths degree, there's a more advanced maths course, um, or maths, physics, engineering degree, there's a more advanced maths course that you could take. Um, in second semester, we're really looking at the core skills of a data scientist. And one of those, the fundamental skills is called data storytelling, but how you convert raw data into actionable intelligence. So data on its own is not very useful in a business context, and you have to process that, and how you make the raw data into a coherent message that managers can act on. So that's called fundamental skill. And that was coming very much from what employers were saying. And then the other aspect is data mining, which is if you are familiar at all with machine learning, AI, another way of describing that is unsupervised learning, where the computer just goes, sees a great big pile of data, and then goes and figures out whatever it can from that data. And then you also have options in artificial intelligence, the digital economy, and project management. But that project management course is moving to the first semester. And there are other uh, courses, but the main ones that people take are AI and digital economy. One, if you've completed all your talk courses and your exams, fine, you can proceed on to the dissertation, and these are 8-week projects that dig deep. You ask you to apply what you've learned in the taught courses to a problem, and some of the problems are actually quite advanced. So there is a project, deep learning for image reconstruction. So if you've got a blurry image, how do you get a clearer image out of that? The actuarial mathematics and statistics department at Heriot-Watt is famous for uh, working in mathematical finance, and so it would be odd for us not to do a financial modeling course. And I think about a quarter of our current cohort have been working in finance, and they're doing the MSc to just boost their career, supercharge their career. And so they're coming from a financial background and are just looking to uh, develop their knowledge, develop data science skills so that they can progress their career. And then if you're coming from areas like social policy, things like that, or epidemiology, um, people at the university have developed or working on what's called Virtual Scotland, which is a digital twin of Scotland, and then that can be used to gain insights on, well, social policy and public health type questions. And so these are some of the choices, but not all of the choices that we're offering this year. And as I say, that's an 8-week project. You'll A small group of you will work with one academic supervisor, over the 8 weeks, and they will direct you into what you learn. But there's some flexibility in what you actually specifically do, which direction the project takes you. I think the deep learning one is the most restrictive because it's a particular task. Whereas certainly the virtual Scotland one is you'll spend a couple of weeks familiar and get yourself with what a digital twin is, and then you can say, actually, I'm interested in social policy, or I'm interested in health policy. I'm interested there's we have a student who's very interested in crime, and so she might be looking at crime in the digital, or looking at aspects of crime using the digital twin. These haven't been allocated yet. They'll be allocated after the exam results. Um, okay, so next slide, please, Rebecca. What we're going to just finish off is there are, um, to my knowledge, there are uh, 3 other comparable MSCs in England being offered by English universities to this MSc program. There's one at University of Essex, there's one at the University of Greenwich, and there's one at University of Loughborough. The one at Essex actually predates the government, UK government initiative. The Loughborough and the Greenwich ones were developed, in light of the UK government push for more data scientists. And so you have options, and the question is, why Edinburgh? First thing that's not on these slides is Heriot-Watt is, out of all the alternatives institutions, we're currently ranked highest for mathematics than those alternatives. Though Loughborough's a very good, well, Loughborough and Essex are both very good universities. We do have a better reputation in mathematical sciences, so you're getting the benefit of the expertise that we have. But you're also coming to Edinburgh. There is lots of advantages of coming to Edinburgh. So Rebecca, if you just go on to the next one. Edinburgh is an ancient capital, or a long-standing capital, very well established city. I'm not Scottish. You might be able to tell I'm English, and I used to live in London. That's where my undergraduate and postgraduate degrees did. Edinburgh offers as much, culturally and socially as London, but in a much smaller space and a much friendlier city. And sometimes, something I point out to you, there is a bus route that will take you from ski slopes to the beach in Edinburgh. And you don't get that in London or Essex or Loughborough. Loughborough and Essex are both very flat. It's highly international, very diverse and inclusive. It has strong links around the world, strong cultural links around the world, because Edinburgh has been an important city for a long time. It's a transport hub. It's easier to access Edinburgh than Glasgow. Glasgow is a significantly bigger city than Edinburgh, but Edinburgh is smaller, friendlier, easier to get to know. There are 4 universities here, the biggest being University of Edinburgh. For research activities, Heriot-Watt is considered the same institution as in mathematics as the University of Edinburgh. We have a lot of interaction with the University of Edinburgh, but there are 2 smaller universities, Napier and Queen Margaret. And so there's lots of students about, and wherever you're coming from, I'm pretty sure that there will be other students from wherever you're from in the city. Um, it's very strong culturally, and in the summer there is the Edinburgh International Festival, and then associated or a spin-off of the International Festival. Um, there is the Fringe Festival, and so from about late July through August, the city sort of feels like it doubles in size, and sort of it becomes quite difficult to walk down Princess Street for all the a lot more tourists in the city, and along the main thoroughfares, you get people promoting their shows. Um, Edinburgh is very safe and it has nice quality of life. It's consider if you look at any best cities in the world to live, um, Edinburgh is usually in the top 10 in Europe. It certainly has lots of, as I say, I spent as long living in London as I've lived in Edinburgh, and it is a much more relaxing city than London, much more um, the city is much easier to cope with than London. The worst commute is a 40-minute bus ride, whereas in London it would be much more stressful, even as a student. Um, so that's basically the appeal of Edinburgh, and it's unusual to find people who don't have a nice experience in Edinburgh. Okay, next slide, please, Rebecca. So takeaways, finishing off. The degree is not intended to develop maths, physics, computer science graduates, though that wasn't the intention. We are finding that those sorts of students are coming on and benefiting from the degree, but that's not the intention. What we're looking for is students who have a solid domain knowledge. So, we've got pharmacists, we've got a sociologist, so people who understand a domain and want to enhance it by developing data science skills. So, um, what we're looking at is employers want an expert in the field, but they want that expert to also understand data science. And although your job role might not be primarily data science, you might employ a more specialist. You would be working at the interface between the business and the data scientist, so the business and the technical things. And so what you should be having is good communication and management skills. And so that's why there's quite a lot of emphasis on data storytelling in the program. You must have a post-16 maths qualification. And as I say, scene integration. We're not saying you remember it and we could present you with a problem and you can solve it. But what we're saying, at some point at school, you were shown what integration was, and that's the indicator of, yeah, you're fine for this program. You will go through it all again in the course, but we're expecting you to have seen it, though not have been expert at it. As I say, current cohort includes sociologist and a pharmacist, and they're doing fine. And feedback we've got from these students is they really do appreciate the care the lecturers take in introducing the technical topics. So given that our objective was to develop data science skills in non-technical graduates, we feel we are achieving that objective. And finally, there are good job prospects. It is one area where employer employers are looking for the skills. And it might not be, you might not be going into a specifically data science role, but you might be going into a financial management role. But the fact that you understand machine learning, artificial intelligence is going to make you more attractive to a potential employer. Okay, so last slide, Rebecca. So, any questions? And I think the host is going to take over now.
I am indeed, and thank you, Tim. Thank you for your insight there. And actually, I think it's great that we hear about Edinburgh, but actually we hear about the differences between Edinburgh and Essex and Loughborough, like you mentioned, which is great because quite often we hear about, what makes Edinburgh so great, but what you don't take into account is the fact that you can go, from skiing to the beach almost within like a 15-20 minute journey. So it is not that you'd want to go to the beach perhaps in Edinburgh sometimes, but it is a great opportunity
What are you
nonetheless.
implying there?
The weather isn't always 100%, Tim, let's put it that way. Um, so, look, Tim, let's get round to some questions. Some have been asked, quite a few around kind of job expectations. And I know you mentioned in those takeaways there, you can expect to become let's say, a pharmacist or sociologist. Someone has said, can I get a job in sport with this, like head of data? Is this something that you are coming across more and more, that actually data's creeping into more and more things, therefore this is becoming appropriate for different subject areas?
Yes. And this is an area I'm very, or, when I was developing the course, I saw actually there's loads here. Um, First thing, Heriot-Watt has a sports science department. I don't know what Rebecca might know, Sarah might know what the actual phrase is, but we have some sort of recognition in Scotland for being a sports centre of excellence. And so we've got a sports science department, and this is very important. We also had um, uh, somebody on the course who used to work for British Cycling, and he came to do the course here. Unfortunately, health issues meant he's had to withdraw. He should be coming back next year, but he had some serious health issues, and so he's not currently enrolled. But we expect him to come back next year. But again, that was it because if you're a sports scientist, you know the great success of British cycling. I don't know, I would say recently, but that's because I'm old and yeah, I can't remember the timeframes, but it was based on heavy data analysis. And when I do I teach the practical data science, that mandatory course in the first semester. And, we do talk about there's an example where we looked at how Formula One cars are using data, and they gather huge amounts of data during the race that's analyzed on the fly. And so, yeah, when I started looking at this, I suddenly realized how massive sports data is and how important it is. For things like British Cycling or Sky, Brailsford, and on that level, and then the Formula One teams, but also the interface between sports science and finances, sports betting, and the data used in sports betting and stuff like that. So it is a massive area. Now, um, I cannot say you can get a job in this. We can help you develop the skills, but getting a job is out of my hands. I can't help you with that. But certainly it is an area. And as I say, we had one person who was he wasn't a recent graduate. He'd been working, as I say, he'd been working in British science. He had a PhD in sports, and he was looking at it again to develop his understanding of data science. And then we had another person who was interested, did quite a bit of work on using data in the practical data science course.
Yeah.
Using data in relation to sports there. So lots of opportunities and a very interesting area. Um, and hopefully we would develop the skills for you to be able to go and work in one of these areas. It's a massive area. It's a big employer. There are jobs out there in sports. So yes, definitely.
Okay, and one of the questions asked as well, and I'm going to try and paraphrase this, I don't think they've perhaps worded it correctly. Are there any specific disciplines you would expect a student to perhaps maybe their background be from? I know you've mentioned already that you have to have mathematics post 16, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But is there, if somebody goes into accountancy or into finance, do you see a lot of that type of student and that type of interest within a student?
We have um about an eighth of our current cohort have been working in finance and they're
Okay.
coming to boost their degree. And then we have a couple who have done finance undergraduates. So I think, yeah, about a quarter of our cohort are finance related. Um, but I'm not surprised that we're attracting that high proportion because we are known for finance related stuff at Heriot-Watt,
Yeah.
finance and maths at Heriot-Watt.
Excellent. Okay. How much programming experience do students typically have when they start? This student doesn't have much experience themselves, so how does the program support those who are perhaps less experienced with that kind of software, perhaps with the education they're going to get?
We we have students who have this year we have students who had no real programming experience, and we take them and the that is what the lecturers were told. Do not assume that they have written any code thus far. And then by the end of 10 weeks, they're competent at coding, not just in Python, but in R, which is a specialist statistical package. And there's SQL, which is the standard database package. And if you go on to, job sites, they'll typically say experience in Python, R, and SQL, and that's why we have those three aspects on the course. That's what people are expecting as a baseline. But yeah, so if you spent your life avoiding programming, yeah, come here and student feedback is it's helpful and it does. And again, this builds on because we have to teach it to our first years as well.
Yeah.
So we're used to this thing about taking people who haven't seen something and then getting them up to speed.
Are they large class sizes, Tim?
It depends if it's a shared class. So on that programming one, there'd be about 15 to 20.
Right.
But it will depend on how many students are on the program to be.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
so yeah, it was first year run this year and we had 16, which was about twice what we were expecting.
yeah, that's excellent news. I only ask because there'll be students that will they'll learn more efficiently in different environments. Of course,
Yeah.
there'll be students that will prefer that personal aspect. No matter what, I'm guessing that aspect is there. How applied is the program? So, how much time is spent coding against learning theory? I'm guessing they're asking there, is it all hands-on, or is there a lot of theory work with it as well?
Um, the hands-on aspect really comes into play in semester three. There's it's I don't it's and the hands-on aspect isn't all about coding. Um, so in semester one, you have one coding, which is, yeah, all assessment is, the programming course is all assessment is coding. Um, in the course I teach, it's all hands-on, but it's not coding. I don't, because I'm in first semester, I can't expect students to be able to code.
Yeah.
I think they do some Excel stuff, and that's just to make sure your Excel skills are up to scratch. In second semester, again, courses tend to be about 50% hands-on, but we have to, there is sort of factual knowledge that we will assess, and you have to know this stuff. You have to understand how gradient descent is working, how a neural network works, and so that's conceptual knowledge. And then you'd come on and apply that in third semester.
Excellent. Okay. A couple more questions that have come through on the chat here. One's probably for Sarah in the background, who I'll ask in a moment. I might have missed it in the presentation, but how much does the program cost? And when are you looking to get people in? We started off the call, I think you mentioned, by hopefully see you in September.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming it's obviously September start dates, but for students that missed the deadline for this September, will it be next September or are there interim dates?
No, we don't have interim dates. We only have at the moment, we only have sorry, the reason I'm looking for some information that you've asked for. We only have the September intake at the moment, and at the moment we have no um, plans to have a January intake.
Yeah.
Um, it's a very new course, and so when we launched it, we've got no idea whether there will actually be the student demand. If the student demand is there, we will have two intakes a year, or I suspect we'll be asked to do two intakes a year. Our computer science program has two intakes a year for certain programs, but we don't, and we have no plans. Um,
Okay.
In terms of the fees, that's why I was stumbling, is I was getting it up. If you're an international student, it's 20,456 for September intake. If you're a UK student, it's 10,864. And I was surprised at more than a third of our students are UK. I was surprised by that. I thought most of our students would be international, but about a third of them, I'd say, are UK based.
Okay, that's interesting to hear
That
that.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that just reflects the fact that they're going out to the job market and everybody's saying, "Well, do you know anything about data science?"
yeah,
Or
also as well,
they see,
I think
sorry,
data is a very popular topic, Tim. I think it's one of those, even in the UK, it's strong.
yeah. And what, three of them are mature, so they've been
Right.
working for a few years.
Okay. Sarah, can I just come to you? Obviously, I know I put Tim on the spot there with fees and stuff. Those numbers are correct. Obviously September's fine. But the international and domestic fees are what Tim mentioned. There's no getting away from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is the fees. We also have got so you get SAS funding in the UK, and then we get a lot of kind of loans and things for international students as well. So yep, that is the fees that we are working with.
Okay, and Sarah, while I've got you also, students ask, can I get a visa if I join? I've been to the UK before as a tourist and had no problems. Looking at September and currently in Ghana, English is my main language for me. Um, if their main language is English, are they still expected to do the TOEFL or IELTS test and get that prerequisite number that they need?
Yeah, so it depends on the qualification that you're coming with for the English language. So if you are coming with a high school certificate, we can look at that depending on the dates you sat your high school certificate. If not, we'd be looking for an IELTS, but we'd assess that on a per person basis. So it really depends what you're coming with. We'd recommend popping all your documents into your application, including all your high school documents, and then we can see and work backwards from there to make sure you're meeting that English criteria. And
And
in
Sarah,
terms of a visa,
sorry, go on.
oh, sorry. In terms of a visa, absolutely, you can get a visa to study this program. So we are issuing visas with a start date of September for the September intake. So, yep, absolutely. So long as everything's all right, you need to prove your finances for the visa and some other documentation that we'll ask you for as well. But other than that, yes, we are issuing visas for this program.
And funding and scholarships. I know it's always a popular one, but you do offer scholarships and work with third-party providers, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have various scholarships and funding available through our website. So I definitely say to check there first of all. We have got various scholarships both from our international departments, so you can get in touch with people internationally, and then we have our third party scholarships as well. So definitely worth exploring our website for that and seeing what you can apply for. I'll note that some of the deadlines are coming up for these scholarships. So if you're thinking of applying, you're probably better applying now and having a look at what scholarships are available now. There is a chance we might get some other ones before September as well, but yep, get your application in as soon as possible.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it. Tim, I'm going to give you the final word just before we wrap up quickly. The students that are looking for September start dates and they're looking to apply now, what would you recommend to them when they are filling out their application form and they're filling out their personal statements? What is it you're specifically looking for?
I think it's I think it's a sort of demonstrate sort of an understanding of how you want to use data science going forward, or why you think adding data science onto what you already know is going to be useful for you. Um, I think that's one of the most interesting things I found as the program director is, you know, I used to teach on our financial maths programs, and everybody was basically on the same conveyor belt
Yeah.
of what they were doing. Whereas in this program, you get people who are interested in social policy. You know, we've got the pharmacist who wants to see how data science can improve, public health, and we've got somebody very interested in crime. We've got somebody who's, as I say, was interested in sports aspect. We've got a couple of people interested in uh, financial stuff. We've got a lot of people interested in climate and environmental stuff. Three or four people who that is there. I think there's a lad from um, Maldives or Mauritius. I forget which one, but climate is a big thing there. So all his work has been climate related. But I think it's this articulate how I've studied this as an undergraduate, or this is where I'm coming from as an undergraduate, and data science is just going to help me in the future, and I recognize why it's so important.
Yeah. Okay. So I
And the
think
other thing is
spelling out the journey, perhaps where you
yeah,
want it to take you.
yeah, and data science. Everybody uses data science, but it's like in the UK, politicians talk about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a massive field with lots of different aspects, and sort of maybe having a understanding of that it's not one thing. But part of what I guess part of what we're trying to do is help you understand how diverse it is. So I don't expect you to be able to articulate that, but it's this yeah, as you say, the journey.
Hmm.
Where's this taking you, and why do you want to get there, type thing.
So there you go, students. Put it all on a piece of paper. Explain to Tim who you are, what you're interested in. I'm sure Tim seems like a very nice character himself, so I'm sure you'd be more than happy to explain to him who you are and why you're interested specifically in MSc Data Science program. So, Tim, thank you for your time. Really appreciate that. I appreciate you giving up your time in the morning. To those involved, thank you very much. Also, and if you have any questions around this session, please communicate with the team directly if you feel like you have any questions specifically about the education and about the program itself. Reach out to Tim. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to take any questions. Ultimately, he'll want to see you in September and he'll want to help you jump on that journey and take you all the way through to whatever career you might have. So a huge thank you for today. Any questions, webinars at postgradsolutions.com. And if you are watching on demand, please reach out to us directly and let us know if you have any questions. Tim, thank you. Take care. Everyone watching, take care. Bye bye.